a couple of days ago, I saw something on Substack which could say irritated me. It was a post about this rune, specifically this rune, although it was shaped slightly different, but it was named a rune, and I'm going to assume that this is the rune they were talking about, even though it had a little bit of a shorter end here, and this cross section here was actually the other way around. And the person said that this rune was the rune. Now, that's BS. They pulled that out of their backside. This is not the rune. This is the Nauthis rune. And this person said that if you want to find your soulmate or your twin flame, that you should gather and perform the stance of this rune. Now, I'm going to tell you why that is a very bad idea. This rune is used in curses. It is not a good idea to personify yourself or to embody yourself with this rune unless it is absolutely necessary. Usually, when we do work with this rune, it is to ward off the evil eye or to become resistant to stress, to distress actually, to be able to withstand the hardships that life throws at us. Now, if you're talking about it's going to be a very good rune to attract that. Now, there is a case to be made for sexual tension because they're rubbing together, representing two sticks rubbing together. Yes, there is definitely some innuendo there. But that is why it is used in sexual magic, or if we want to be very crude about it, to attract a lover, but not a long-term lover, not a partner, not a soulmate. Because, quite frankly, when we are out looking for one-night stands or somebody that we really, really want to have a one-night stand with, because there is a lot of sexual attraction, doesn't tend to make for good relationships. There are very few people who met their wives or husbands while having a one-night stand. That's why it's called a one-night stand for a reason, because one night. We can assume, and most of us probably do assume this, that this was done out of ignorance and that this person just had two runes confused. Instead of the Nauthis rune, he meant the Ewas rune, which, okay, Ewas, it can indeed point to a connection, a spiritual connection on a soul level. Possible that they just got confused. The person had master in their name, so either this person felt a sense of was aggrandizing themselves and had no business calling themselves master when making a very simple confusion, or what is most likely is that the intention was sinister. And I think this happens way more often than most of us like to think happens. And a lot of those TikTok trends, for instance, are exactly that. They are energy harvesting mechanics. These are often put out into the world by people who know exactly what they are doing, which makes them occultists, the hidden hand. And why they do it for? Nothing that has your best interest in mind. This definitely falls in the realm of black magic, but it's a very smart way of doing it, because you're not forcing anybody to take your bad and ill-intended advice. They do that out of their own free will, which a lot of people will do out of ignorance, to their own detriment. So be very careful with things like that. For instance, I remember Thomas Sheridan making a video about this in the past, when you have to write out your intention or what you want, your desire, your wish fulfillment. You had to write it on a piece of paper, and then you had to film yourself cutting yourself and bleed on top of it, and then show on camera that you did that. This is, well, first of all, it's blood magic, which in itself I don't necessarily have anything against. If it works, it works. Just be careful how you do that. I can't. YouTube is not very keen on people who practice that or who even say that they are okay with it, because it is what it is. It's bit, well, it's well, I'm going off on a tangent here, but YouTube doesn't like it, even though it's very effective. And that's why the person who came up with that knows this too. And that's why he or she put it out in the world for people to do. Now, you don't know the intention of the person who brings this trend onto social media. You don't know which entities they are working with. Most likely, they are doing it to enrich themselves in some way. Or worse, they are doing it to accomplish something on the grander, greater scale. Which we have to wonder why. Why would anybody do that? And it is my belief that a lot of people who are in power are very, very, very aware of occultism and utilize it quite frequently in the exact same manner that the church uses ritual, magic, and occultism, but doesn't want you to do it. Whether you agree with that or not, I mean, we leave that in the middle. Lots of occult societies also don't give everything they know out for free, also for good reasons. And a multitude of reasons. It's not just one reason. Part of it is for your own protection as well. But yeah, be very careful with things like that when you get this sort of advice that all of a sudden you see all over social media. You have no idea where it comes from. Well, in this case, I felt like I wanted to make a video about it because, well, obviously it's close to my heart. Now, what can you use the rune for? Like I said, in sex magic, in love magic, in the sense that we take love not too serious. It has nothing to do with partnership. It has nothing to do with finding your twin flame, your soulmate. And if the person that you are attracting embodies the qualities of this rune, you are better off finding yourself a good therapist. This is not the person you want to be soulmated with at all. I don't believe in the concept of soulmates personally, and quotation marks. What you will attract with a person who embodies this rune as a character is a nutcase. It is somebody that's going to make your life very, very, very difficult. You bring up leaving or separating, cue the histrionics, cue the self-deletion threats, cue, oh no, I happen to become pregnant just at this time. Now we can't separate. And if you do separate, I'm going to drag you through court for everything you have. That is the type of struggle. That is the type of person you're going to attract. A person that is the embodiment of a difficult time ahead. So yes, be careful. This, for instance, this atropopaic magic, that is the exact same thing as this. The warding off of the evil eye, of bad intentions. Somebody honing in on you, hoping to install whatever psychic hook that they can in order to project every negative emotion onto you. That is the type of person you're going to attract. Like I said, it could be ignorance, but it is probably wise to assume that it was ill intent. And these things happen a lot in New Age circles. The whole New Age world, by the way, is entity infested. to a ridiculous degree. This goes for a lot of mediums, a lot of channelers. You always need to take a good look at who it is saying what, not just what they're saying, because what they're saying obviously sounds good to a lot of people, but you have to look at who is saying it to. If they are the type of person that wants to remain anonymous, best not ever to follow their advice, because you don't know who they are. You cannot even glean anything from their practice, who they really are, what energy they give off. Somebody who always hides behind an avatar is simply not a trustworthy person. If you cannot say it with your name and face attached to it, then I have to assume that what you have to say is something you know is bad and ill-intended. And you can glean a lot from looking at a person, how they live. Do they take care of themselves? Do they live in filth? Do they wash? Because demons and entities do thrive on chaotic people, on people who do not take good care of themselves. This is something that you see with a lot of hoarders. A lot of these people have entity attachments. And that is because the entity thrives on the chaos, on the turmoil, on the emotional and psychological turmoil that it produces in a human. They feed on that. Most popularly known as louche, emotional excess. Things that are not constructive or conducive to a pleasant and organized environment. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling, a vicious cycle. That is really all I wanted to say. I know I say this a lot on Substack. I do go off on the New Age a lot, but not without good reason. It is very much my wish to have people question these movements, these trends that suddenly just appear out of nowhere and people just run with it. Especially in this case, it would be a very bad idea. It is just not a rune that is conducive to a good relationship. But I will leave you with something more positive. If you do want to have more stability in your relationship, or you want to attract a partner with who you can have a good relationship, runes that are much more appropriate to use and probably more helpful too is, ironically enough, the rune that was in this month's rune reading, Gebo, because mutual exchange, reciprocity. This is when you are in relationship with these unstable people that embody the qualities of the Nautis rune, you cannot have a healthy reciprocal relationship with those people. You will be threading on eggshells. You will be threatened. Your life will be made difficult. This is not the case with somebody who is more likely to embody these qualities. Reciprocity, equal give and take, balance. There's no tit for tat. There is no scorecard to be held. And within a union like that, we can find joy, happiness. This is the rune of happiness, of wish fulfillment. You wish to have this kind of relationship, or I'm assuming that most people do. There are indeed people that get a kick out of getting into relationships like that, and often they pay a heavy price for it. Ask yourself whether it's worth it. The boring relationships are often more fulfilling, they last longer, and you can find real happiness in those relationships. That is really all I wish to say. So if you're looking for a spiritual connection, be sure to use it with the Wunyo rune as well. Because if all a spiritual connection does is drag you down, make you question yourself, and you always end up feeling bad about yourself, you're dealing with a vampiric relationship. Equal give and take. The soul connections are best to be surrounded by a gibbo and a wunyo rune. That's not to say we will never experience difficult times in a relationship, but we don't need to go seek them out. They will happen anyway. It's not all sunshine and roses all the time. But likewise, it doesn't need to be this all the time. I for sure hope for you that you don't want that. That's really all I wanted to say. I really wanted to make this video because it irks me when I see things like that. And I also know how detrimental it can be when you just use occult advice in good faith because you think that the other person puts it out in good faith. Assume it's not. Assume it's not. Because there was no explanation given on why this is a good rune to use to find this type of relationship. No, just out there. If you want to find this type of relationship, use this rune. This one. Don't. So just be careful. A lot of this is put out in bad faith. And it is wise to assume that it is. Even though for a lot of people that may be hard to hear. Because you're probably a good intended person. And that says a lot about your character. But don't be naive. There are a lot of ill-intended people out there who will use occultism against you. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening. And don't use this rune for that purpose.